Welcome back, class. Let's go ahead and do a quick review of session number 7. In the last session, we covered foot in the door phenomena, role playing, and cognitive dissonance. All of these were focusing on the ideas of social thinking. Now we'll be examining social influence. The topics of social influence are cultural influences, conformity, looking at mimicry and norms, then obedience, factors and lessons, then group situations and group behavior, social facilitation, social loafing, polarization, de-individuation, groupthink, and the power of the individuals. Now, cultural influences. Culture. What is it? Culture, the behaviors and beliefs of a group, is shared and passed on to others, including the next generation of that group. This sharing of traditions, values, and ideas is a form of social influence that helps maintain the culture. Norms are the rules, often unspoken but commonly understood, that guide behavior in a culture. Norms are part of the culture, but also part of the way social influence works to maintain the culture. Cultures change over time. Norms for marriage and divorce have changed in Western culture. So the key thing here is that obviously, whatever culture you are from, that culture will have a great deal of influence on social factors of how you interact with people, what you do with people, how you observe them, how you attribute cause, and things of that nature. So culture, as we've seen several times already, has a great deal of influence on individual behaviors that of the individuals that live within that culture. So, what form of social influence is the subject of this cartoon? We see in the block to the left, banking on the youth market. We see the sign. It says, "Be like all your friends and express your individuality." Be like all your friends and express your individuality. What this really points to is the notion of conformity. Conformity. We all are going to be influenced in one way or another by conformity. It's something that really does have a great deal of influence on people's behavior. Conformity refers to adjusting our behavior or thinking to fit in with a group standard. The power of conformity has many components and forms, including automatic mimicry, social norms affecting our thinking, as automatic mimicry affects our behavior, and normative informational social influence. All of these, the power of conformity has these as its driving forces. Automatic mimicry, social norms, normative and informational social influence. So let's look at mimicry. Mimicry, it's not only true that birds of a feather flock together, it is also true that if we flock together, we might choose to wear the same feathers. So basically, as you can see in this photograph here, these individuals are dressed similarly. Okay, they're even walking similarly from the little segment that we can see here, a snippet of their motion. So the notion here is that they can be mimicking each other, habits and behaviors and so on. The question is, were they all this way? Well, probably not. Some new ones coming to this little group may subtly change their behavior to mimic the people who are already part of that group. Automatic mimicry. Some of our mimicry of other people is not by choice, but automatic. We have what is known as the chameleon effect, unintentionally mirroring the body position and mood of others around us, leading to contagious yawning, contagious arm folding, hand wringing, and face rubbing. Have you ever been in a meeting with someone or around someone and they have a certain mannerism, they move their hand a certain way or a foot a certain way, and you find yourself doing the same thing? That's automatic mimicry, and what we refer to that as the chameleon effect. We also see that it has some empathic possibility as well. Empathic shifts in mood that fit the mood of the people around us. If you're hanging around a bunch of people who are very happy-go-lucky or very happy, you'll tend to be more happy yourself. If they're a little bit down group, you may tend to be a little bit more down just as they are. So again, this stuff that we're seeing here is very automatic. All right? So, copying the actions of others, including forms of violence, hopefully forms of kindness. We see that these things happen. You see somebody do something, you may do it yourself. You may mimic their behavior. So the idea, for example, you're leaving a big civic center and it was a major event. It's very crowded in the parking lot. And as you're leaving, you know you have a long line ahead of you, but someone stops their car and lets you in. You may then, a few cars later, when you're in an opportunity, do the same thing. So let's look at conformity and responding to social norms. When we are with other people and perceive a social norm, meaning that there is a correct or normal way to behave or think within this group, our behavior may follow the norm rather than following our own judgment. So you may have a certain tendency to want to do something this way, but you pick up as you join this new group that they may tend to do something, the thing that you're thinking about, a different way. You may suspend your tendency and do what they would prefer you to do as part of their particular social norm. The classic study by Asch, the Asch conformity studies, what we saw here is evidence that people, even when they know something is wrong, when someone has spouted out some wrong information, that there's going to be a pressure to support that person, to conform to that statement. So in the Asch conformity studies, about 1/3 of the people will agree with obvious mistruths to go along with the group. So in this example of the photograph here, they are seeing a square. That square has 5 sides. The other person on the other end says that square has 5 sides. The one in the middle, they're saying, what are they thinking? It's not a square with 5 sides. The question is, however, what will this person say? So basically, this is one of the standards that were used to perform the Asch conformity studies. They would have a bunch of comparison lines and then a standard line. And they would ask a bunch of people in the room together to select which line of the comparison lines is equal to or closest to the standard line. What they would do, they would have several turns, and they would commonly say 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So however many people, they would say 2. Then in other conditions, what they would have is they would make someone make the statement that it was the wrong line. They would provide the wrong comparison line that would be equal to the standard. And what they were attempting to try to find out, what would happen when an obvious mistruth, a lie basically, was stated as truth. Would someone conform to that or not? Now, just to clarify, let's say there are 10 people in the room. If there are 10 people in the room making these judgments, 9 of the people would be working with the experimenter. They would be confederates or cohorts with the experiment, meaning they know what the game is. And only one person in that group would be the true subject of that experiment. All the people, a majority of the people, would give the wrong answer, and then it would be the turn of the true subject of the experiment, and what they wanted to find out is what that person would say. Would they provide an obvious false answer, or would they say what actually is the truth and defy the norms of that group? What we saw is that normally about 30% or so would even conform, even if the information was blatantly wrong. So, what makes you more likely to conform? And we do know there's evidence out there that says there are certain criteria or situations where we are more likely to see somebody conform over others. 1, you are not firmly committed to the one set of beliefs or style of behavior. You're not married to the idea. You don't really have, really a strong belief one way or another about whatever's being communicated here. The other one, two, the group is medium-sized and unanimous. Okay, what this basically means, you're more likely to conform if there is a medium-sized group, not too small, but that medium-sized group is also unanimous. There's no one that's providing any contrary information. They're all seemingly agreeing with whatever norm that is. You admire or are attracted to the group. It's a group that you like to belong to, a group that you want to belong to. And in this case, you don't want to rock the boat, so to speak. So you admire or you see this group as attractive, then you're not going to disagree with them openly. The other, the group tries to make you feel incompetent, insecure, and closely watched. What this means is, if they wanted to, they could try to sort of intensify the feelings of incompetence. If that happens, you're more likely to conform. If they make you feel a little bit more insecure, then you're more likely to conform. If you feel like you're being closely watched or observed intensely, then you are more likely to conform. And then the other thing too, your culture encourages and respects for norms. Now, this basically means that you have a culture that says you should follow the norms. Our particular culture is not a really conforming one. As we've stated in previous sessions, we are an individualistic type of culture. We're like the individual. We're not always about group, group, group. But there are other cultures, more collectivist cultures, that are. You would tend to see more conformity in cultures that are collectivist by nature. They're more eager to follow the norms as opposed to an individualistic culture like ours. There are two types of social influence. Normative social influence, going along with others in pursuit of social approval or belonging and to avoid disapproval or rejection. Okay, and the Asch conformity studies and clothing choices are examples of those. These are the norms established by whatever group we're talking about, and we go along with others in pursuit of social approval. We belong and we're not being rejected. Then we have informational social influence, going along with others because their ideas and behavior make sense. The evidence in our social environment changes our minds. So deciding which side of the road to drive on. It's informational social influence. It's something that guides our behavior. It makes sense, and therefore we conform to it. So those are the two types of social influence we want to discuss there. We'll pick up on these ideas in the next session.